Hey, I understand that you only got a couple minutes, and so do I, so let's get talking. This is a very short C50 podcast that takes an illustration, explains biblical truth, and tries to encourage everyone that's struggling with mental health issues. I'm already saying too much. Let's get into it.
Check. As a youth pastor, I would take our kids to a music festival called Alive. Here's a plug for Alive. It's really great, and every youth pastor should bring their high school kids, but know that your senior pastor, etc., won't think it's worth it. But it is very much worth it. Sometimes the weather was perfect, and we bonded over that good weather. The other half of the time, the weather was rainy, and we bonded even over the rain. Either way, it was a good time. I'm going to admit a horrible reason why I made it through this awful weather and some of the years at Alive. You see, when we would get there, I would explain to everyone about tents. I would talk about tarps, high ground, keeping everything inside, and zipping your doors and windows. However, no one seemed to listen to me. Everyone wanted their tent in a cool place, and they all wanted to tie their tents to trees and to each other and make communal living spaces. An hour after setup, everyone was down at the lake. Clothes were in bags outside, windows were down, and doors were open. Do I enforce more rules? Do I clean up after them? Soon the rain would come and soak the clothes, the bags, inside the tents, and then came the mud. People would walk into their tent with muddy shoes. Now my anxiety is through the roof watching this disaster unfold. I question myself, did I give enough suggestions? Of course, I try to be a good youth pastor and buy lots of wood. We put down straw, we hang lines to dry clothes, and I do all I can because I do love the kids. What no one knows is that I spent a good amount of time setting up my own tent. I didn't take the best spot, but I always found high ground. I zipped my windows and took shoes off. I need to say this. Now look, I never slept with other students in my tent because I have night terrors because of the medication that I would take, and I didn't want to freak out at night and knock somebody out. And that's true. So I kind of have my own little tent. And in the madness of the loud music and swimming in the lakes and mud and wet clothes, I always had a dry, clean place that I kept immaculate. It was probably the only way I could keep my sanity. I'm sorry to all my kids and adults who are frustrated hearing about how great my tent was when you were at Alive and you were struggling. I'm sorry. John 16:33 says this, I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world. So how does this fit with mental health? First, admit that you have trouble. If you're anything like me, you understand trouble. And then Christ says this. He says you will have trouble. But he says take heart. And take heart means hope. Hope that Jesus overcame the trouble of this world and is trusting that God has a plan for you when you feel used and abused. Hope is that you can have healthy relationships, that you can find love in your spouse and your family. Hope is that people can forgive, will forgive, and when you ask for forgiveness, that they will forgive. This is through the strength of Christ, and this is hope. That tent was my sanity and my hope in the midst of the crazy storm. Psalms many times talks about God being like a strong tower and a refuge from the storm and the struggles of this world. But I encourage you to take heart, find hope in Jesus Christ.
Thank you for listening. And for all of you that are affected by mental health issues, let me take a line from a song I like. It says, "Not on our watch, we won't be bound to your prison." The truth is, Christ is hope, healing, and freedom.